I've replayed that night in my mind so many times that it's become a part of me, woven into the fabric of who I am. It was 3 years ago, when I was 17 and broke, just scraping by on meager savings and desperate to pay off my college fees. McDonald's seemed like a golden opportunity, the promise of reliable hours, a friendly work environment, and best of all, the flexibility to pick up extra shifts whenever I needed extra cash. What I didn't know then was that those fluorescent lights and polished floors would one day become the backdrop to a horror I would never forget. 1. Taking the job, dreams and desperation. I'll admit it. When I walked into McDonald's for my first job interview, I felt a tingle of excitement. The famous arches were as bright as a Hollywood sign, and the steady hum of the deep fryer sounded like possibility. I pictured myself wearing that red and yellow uniform with pride, earning money, building my resume, and inching closer to my dream of a university degree. But behind the shiny counters and well-oiled machinery, there was another reality. My manager was a stickler for punctuality, drilling schedules into our heads like sacred scripture. He measured dedication in hours worked, and after 3 months on the day shift, I'd practically lived at that restaurant. I flipped burgers, manned the register, and restocked napkins until my fingers were raw. The customers, a mix of families, tourists, and night owls, became familiar faces and learned their orders by heart. A filet-o-fish for Mrs. Ahmed, a large fries with extra salt for the late-night study group. It was routine, almost comforting. Then one Thursday morning, he called me into his small windowless office by the storage room. The fluorescent bulbs above flickered as he spoke. "You've done well, Zainab," he said, scanning my name on his clipboard. "I think you're ready for the night shift. Saturdays, 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. You comfortable with that?" My heart sank. Nights meant silence, loneliness, and the kind of fatigue that seeps into your bones. I hesitated, but felt I had no choice. "Sure," I said, forcing a grin. "No problem." 2. The first graveyard shift. Quiet, almost too quiet. People say graveyard shifts are calm. No customers means no stress. And at first, that was exactly what I experienced. On that first Saturday, I walked in just after midnight to find my manager already halfway through his shift, rubbing his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "Here's the checklist," he yawned, handing me a clipboard. "Refill sauces, mop, wipe tables, empty bins, restock coffee cups. The place is yours. Keep busy." And so I did. The hum of the soda machine became white noise. My mop strokes echoed against the tiled floor. Every ketchup and mayo bottle gleamed like a trophy under the lights. I ticked off tasks, one by one, feeling strangely proud that I could handle the solitude. But by 2 o'clock IUN, the silence started to feel oppressive, the usual clatter of voices, the laughter of kids, the constant buzz of conversation, all gone. In its place was a heavy stillness, broken only by the drip-drip of a leaky sink behind the counter. I paused at the coffee station, staring at the neat rows of paper cups. My eyes trailed upward to the big front windows. Out there, beyond the transparent barrier, was the empty parking lot, bathed in moonlight and flickering street lamps. It looked serene, peaceful even, but something about that view made my skin crawl. I shook my head, dismissing the unease. I was tired, I told myself, nothing more. 3. The first glimpse, something in the shadows. Returned to my duties, wiping down tables in the dining area. My cloth glided over plastic chairs, collecting stray crumbs and sticky spots. I hummed a tune under my breath, an old lullaby my grandmother used to sing. It helped calm my nerves. But then a prickle at the back of my neck, like tiny fingers brushing down my spine. I halted mid-swipe and froze. A sense of being watched slammed into me. My breath caught. I turned, eyes darting toward the windows again. At first, I saw nothing, just the dark expanse of asphalt and painted parking lines. Then, at the far edge of the lot, close to the garbage bins, a shape shifted. A tall, inky silhouette, featureless but unmistakably humanoid, stood as still as the night itself. My pulse jumped. I blinked hard. Maybe someone wandered by. Maybe a vagrant looking for a late-night snack. The imagination conjures all kinds of things in the dark, I told myself. But my heart hammered on, its beat loud in my ears. I took a cautious step forward, intending to peer more closely, but the shape didn't move. It just hovered there, a dark sentinel in the silver glow of streetlights. My rational mind groped for explanations, a trash bag caught on a fence, a trick of the shadows. Yet my gut twisted with dread. I forced a shaky breath, turned away, and focused on cleaning the condiment station. I needed to maintain control. Or, ignoring the warnings, pride and denial. I spent the next 10 minutes convincing myself I was overreacting. I scrubbed every table in the dining room, lined up the ketchup packets, and dusted the corners of the play area. The repetitive work was therapeutic. Each crossed-off chore on my checklist was a small victory. Still, I kept glancing over my shoulder, peeking at the windows. The parking lot remained empty until it wasn't. By 3:00, fatigue blurred my thoughts. My eyelids drooped, and I yawned so hard I thought my jaw might dislocate. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Get a grip," I scolded myself. "This is just another shift." Then came a muffled thud. Tap, 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 like fingernails drumming on glass. I jerked upright, the rag in my hand twisting into a knot. The front window by the register shook slightly with each thud. My heart lurched into my throat. I tiptoed toward the counter, each step echoing in the vast emptiness. And there, right against the glass, was the silhouette again, no longer in the corner, but inches from my face. Blacker than the night itself, it blocked out the faint glow of the neon open sign I'd flipped to closed 2 hours earlier. I stared, rooted to the spot, as its red eyes, 2 burning coals, peered into mine. They pulsed with malevolence, sizing me up. In that moment, the air around me felt thick, suffocating, charged with something I couldn't name. I felt smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. 5. Panic sets in, the demon reveals itself. For a heartbeat, I held my ground, transfixed by the creature's gaze. It wasn't a customer or a vagrant. It was something else entirely. A demon. A nightmare come to life. Its form was too perfect in its darkness, too inorganic, too impossible. Tap, tap, tap. The sound grew louder, more insistent, as if it were demanding entry, demanding to be seen. I yanked my eyes away and backed toward the mop bucket, sending ripples across the soapy water. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting quivering shadows along the walls. In the reflection, I saw my own face, pale, eyes wide, sweat beading on my forehead. I dropped the mop and stumbled back, heart thundering. My manager's checklist lay forgotten on a nearby counter. I could hear my own ragged breathing, feel the tremor in my limbs. The rational part of me screamed, "This isn't happening!" But the only response I could muster was flight. 6. Flight or fight. Choosing flight. I bolted from the dining area, sprinting toward the front entrance. My footsteps thundered against the tile floor. I yanked open the door, ignoring the beep of the automatic sensor. The cold night air hit me like a punch to the chest, but I barely noticed. I was focused entirely on escape. I darted across the empty parking lot, adrenaline fueling my legs. The wind whipped past me, carrying the distant sound of crickets. I didn't stop to look back. I didn't want to see if that shape was chasing me. I just ran. My car sat under a lone, flickering lamppost. I nearly tripped over my own feet as I fumbled for the keys in my pocket, keys coated with sweat and trembling fingers. Finally, I found the right one, shoved it into the lock and turned. The door slammed shut behind me as I dove into the driver's seat, locked the doors and gunned the engine. Tires squealed against asphalt as I peeled out of the lot, the rear-view mirror catching a fleeting glimpse of nothing. No demon, no silhouette, only empty space. 7. Aftermath. Lies and the weight of fear. I didn't stop driving until I reached the safety of my neighborhood. My hands shook as I parked outside my house, headlights illuminating the familiar gate. I turned off the engine and let out a long, ragged breath, the kind that shakes your whole body. My chest ached with the effort of simply existing. Inside, I collapsed onto my bed, clothes still damp with sweat. My phone lay on the nightstand, the screen lit by incoming messages, friends asking how my shift went. I couldn't lie, but I couldn't tell the truth. Who would believe a girl had faced down a demon at McDonald's? So I crafted a quick text. Feeling sick, had to leave early, sorry boss. I hit send and buried my face in the pillow, trying to erase the memory of those blazing red eyes. Sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, the image returned, that featureless blackness pressing against the glass, red eyes burning holes through the night. My mind chased a million what-ifs. What if it had followed me home? What if it hadn't been alone? What if... Returning to the daytime world, the haunting continues. The next day, I returned to McDonald's for my regular day shift, forcing a smile as if nothing happened. Customers waved, my coworkers joked, and the fryer sizzled as usual. But I felt different, adrift in a world that made no sense. Every corner felt foreboding, every shadow a potential hiding spot. I avoided the windows for weeks, keeping my back to the dining area whenever I could. At closing time, I made sure a coworker stayed late so I wouldn't be alone. I begged off every night shift thereafter, swapping schedules and stretching vacation days to avoid those graveyard hours. Eventually, my college fees were paid and I left McDonald's for good. I found a new job, one with no night shifts at all, but leaving that place didn't banish my fear. Even now, the slightest flicker of a window at night makes my heart tighten. 9. Reflection. Lessons in fear and survival. They say fear is the mind killer. Maybe that's true. Fear paralyzes, makes us doubt ourselves, clouds our judgment. But it also teaches us something. When faced with real, palpable danger, our bodies know how to react. Mine chose flight, and I'm alive because of it. I learned that night that the ordinary can hide the extraordinary. A McDonald's, so familiar and mundane, became a stage for something supernatural. It reminded me that safety is a fragile illusion, one that can shatter with a single glance into pitch-black darkness. I also learned the power of intuition. Everyone around me told me I was overreacting, that there was no such thing as demons. But that primal sense of dread was telling me the truth. Something was out there, and it was hungry for fear. 10. A message to you. Trust yourself. Respect the unknown. If you're reading this and you've ever worked a night shift, or if you ever find yourself alone in a silent place when the world is asleep, remember what happened to me. Pay attention to that uneasy feeling, that whisper in your ear that something's not right. Because sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones we can name. They're the ones we can barely see. And if by some chance you find yourself staring into red eyes at 3 o'clock a.m., don't hesitate. Run. Run as fast as you can, and don't look back until you're somewhere bright and full of people. Because some things don't belong in our world, and the moment you acknowledge them, they'll acknowledge you. Pet blog, carrying the memory forward. 3 years have passed since that night, and I still feel it sometimes. A twitch at the back of my neck, a quick glance toward darkened glass. But I'm stronger now. I share my story not to frighten you, but to remind you that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the choice to act despite it. If you've ever faced something inexplicable, something that rattles you to your core, know that you're not alone. Your instincts are your greatest ally. Honor them, trust them, and use them to protect yourself. As for me, I've moved on. Found new jobs, new experiences, and a life that's busier than those solitary nights ever were. But I'll never forget that demon at the window, and I'll never forget what it taught me about fear, survival, and the power of listening to that little voice inside your head. Stay safe, stay alert, and whatever you do, don't ignore the shadows.